Hi everybody, happy 2024. It's a pleasure, a privilege, an honour to be here with you today. I am going back into the groove, the easy groove, as is the theme of January in the beautiful spaces I'm a part of. So, what I wanted to talk today about and feel into is beneficial practices. The way we do one thing is the way we do all things. In the words of Shoshana Raven of Living Brave, she's amazing. She's the space, or that's the space that I was referring to before. And I've been really reflecting on this in my life and how I'm relating to the world around me, how I'm making decisions, how I'm having my relationships pan out. And I think one thing that keeps me grounded is having ritualistic practice. Everything is a ritualistic practice when we think about it. If we make ourselves a cup of tea, we light a candle, we practice the guitar, we check out Instagram, read a book. This is also a great book, by the way, if anyone's interested. Highly recommend. Anything can be a practice. And when we're really kind of focused on our goals, or we're focused on improvement, we're focused on self-acceptance, we're focused on the combination of the two, which in my opinion is probably the only way that we fully feel satisfied with life. And we can come back to the same things again and again and again to remind us of this identity we are creating. When we look at the concept of identity, it's a lot about what thoughts am I thinking, what behaviors am I repeating and doing and putting intention and energy towards, and how does this relate to how I feel about myself and how do I feel about these things. I feel like it's very important we take time in our lives to analyze or feel into, is this serving me, right? Like, is this something that actually benefits who I am as a person? Is this something that benefits my soul? Because we're so much more than the collection of action and identity and thought. We are these beautiful spiritual beings, and none of us really have any concept of what that means beyond this life. We can access channels and translate messages and, you know, practice yoga every day of our lives, like me. But that doesn't mean we have much more understanding of what lies beyond the human life, the human realm. We are all just translators of an energy. And whilst I am in the coaching industry, I adore the coaching industry. I feel like it's my passion, my home. It leads me into so many other passions. For example, I want to create more music. I want to be more confident with singing, with expressing. Maybe I want to try acting one day. You know, I'm a dancer. There's so many things that I want to be coached in. I want to learn so many more skills, perfect more skills, understand more things. And coaching is an incredible tool to get us into that space. I feel like we can have a little resistance to something like coaching or life coaching or mentoring when we look at it from the perspective of, this is someone trying to tell me how to be. But when we actually take a step back from that, we can realize that this is someone who has the energy and the success in something that we want, right? They have a routine that we want to create for ourselves. They have a passion, they have an energy, they have a frequency, they have a divinity that we want to include in our practice, in our being, and express to the world in our unique way. For no one can truly replicate or tell you how to be even. Everything is organic. Even if someone copy and pastes this entire video and makes a text copy of it and posts it as their own, okay, that's fine. But they haven't got the energy behind it to back it up, because that's my unique frequency, right? It's my unique frequency that allows these words to be heard, to be felt, to be understood by the right people at the right time. So coming back to the thought of a practice and having a practice, when we really accept our uniqueness and resonate with the frequency of abundance, resonate with the abundance of possibility, we realize that in every moment we could choose a physical task to create more of what we are authentically emanating. The same way I'm practicing my guitar, perhaps it gives me a slightly different flavor, but it's the same way I'm practicing my yoga. It's the same way I will sing. It's the same way I will write. The same way I'm talking with you now. The same way I'll speak with my coaching clients. The same way I'll speak with my coaches, right? They might be different areas and activate different aspects, but there's an overall energy, a uniqueness that is authentically ours. When we're doing the practices and completing tasks and feeling life from a space of trueness to who we really are, we then end up taking more step into that frequency, strengthening that frequency. Whereas if we're spending all of our time, for example, copying someone else, trying to emulate that frequency, or taking credit for someone else's words or wisdom, or even, unconsciously that happens. People replicate the same things again and again and don't necessarily understand where that seed was planted first. I'm sure I've done it. I'm sure we've all done it. Claimed a story as our own, when in fact it was not ours to claim. So often I tend to move away from telling people how they should be, how they should act. I will always suggest, if asked, especially from a client, what should I do? What is your perspective? I will gift my perspective, of course. And it's also really important that we recognize someone else's divinity. In and of itself, we only have our perspectives. We only have our unique experience, expression, understanding, and it's practically impossible to be a master of all things when every person in the world can access their authenticity, their uniqueness. We will never need for anything, because everyone will be able to gift exactly what is needed in that moment. And how can those of us now who are in a position of, I don't like the word privilege for this. I think it brings up a lot of connotations, a lot of energies, but for the sake of this video and what I'm trying to express, I'm going to use privilege. For those of us who are privileged enough to get to practice this spiritual concept in practical terms, we get to apply these incredibly beautiful concepts into a westernized lifestyle, or any lifestyle with kind of wealth, with money, with self-improvement, with us having the capacity and the space and time to work on ourselves, to be the best versions of ourselves. Like, how lucky are we? How lucky are we? And how can we use that gift to share with others, to share with the whole world eventually? And also not letting ourselves get drawn in to that incredibly overwhelming energy of, oh, well, what right do you have to be living that life when that people over here are suffering? it's really challenging for a being in this generation to be born into this world and somehow accept responsibility for an entire world, an entire global situation of war, of famine, of violence, of atrocities that I can't even imagine. When I went over to Mexico, I experienced homelessness. I got married. I am now divorced energetically. I experienced days where I couldn't feed myself. All of my technology failed and I couldn't access my community or my business. I lost a lot of people. I was misunderstood a lot with the language barriers and sometimes with other people who spoke English. Projected upon, I projected onto. I had a really challenging survival instinct experience. And that's not the first time. 11:11 on my camera. I've been through a series of initiations, for example, in Vietnam, where I had my breakthrough, breakdown, breakthrough. I had to completely isolate myself from the world that I knew because I realized how poor my boundaries with life were and how I let people treat me, the kind of environments I let myself sit in and feel in, exist in. And I needed to completely change my perspective on the world. And that was very clear to me. And I couldn't do that with people who knew me, who expected things of me. So I left my job. They'd been stealing from me. So many things were happening that I won't go into right now. We'll save that for another video. But long story short, I was pushed to my limit emotionally, physically. I was just starting the tarot card business as well, and the clients were just, oh my God, a reflection of where I was at energetically. So it was just a bit of a nightmare and an amplification of that. When I left, I spent a month in Ninh Binh in the north of Vietnam, solely in the countryside. I lived a really simple life. I just took care of myself. I had the money from the job I'd been working as a teacher and a little bit of tarot. And I woke up, I did my yoga, I went for my breakfast at the hostel I was living at. I made friends with a lady there, and it was just us. Essentially, we'd go for some walks sometimes. I would spend a lot of time drawing or painting or on the roof, just regulating my nervous system, because I was in and out of suicidal episodes. I was in and out of like extreme voice. What I would probably have been diagnosed with was schizophrenia or something along those lines, because it was so very, very real. It was so very, very vivid, because I'd cut out all of the things that I'd used to numb: the substance, the phone, the job, the friends, all the things that would normally keep you distracted from this part of yourself, I didn't have. So after about 4 or 5 months of being completely alone in this, I had kind of people checking in on me, and I would slowly open up to people about where I was, physically and emotionally. Some people very understanding, some people not quite so understanding. They took it quite personally that I couldn't keep them or anyone in my life at that moment. Not because anyone had done anything wrong, but because it was my pleasure, my privilege, to step into a new space of awareness of who I am and how I can share my gift with the world and how I can help people bring their own to the surface and have the bravery and courage to act on that, right? I think we need people who believe in us. I know firsthand what it's like to be surrounded by people that don't necessarily believe in you, and it can be quite exhausting. So having the momentum behind you is hugely important. Back in Vietnam, we're going back there again. One of the things that I learned the most was how important it is to reintegrate yourself after a period of isolation, and how also that can be incredibly overwhelming. So we tend to be quite vulnerable in that space. And if we don't have people who are maybe more aware of where we're at, and we're not really ready to share that with people, it can be quite challenging to relate to people in our physical reality. There are so many people in our life who we will meet. They will come, they will go. They're not necessarily a main character energy of our life, but of their own, 100%. So we have to learn to let people live as they are, love as they are, be as they are, and gently just, oh, okay, what does that mean about me? I didn't really enjoy that behavior. This can be underneath the reactivity. I've been there too, don't worry, but this is just where I got to. Underneath that, and really feeling into how can I make a choice that this behavior within me is evolving. So if this person is, you've experienced infidelity, right? You're just dating someone and they have found another person, they've not told you about it, there's been some sort of breaking of trust, distrust. And we come away from that situation and we're evaluating, we feel the betrayal, we feel the pain. And then we're moving into a space of, okay, well, where is this inability to confront a truth in my life? For example, when we cheat, when we are in that energy of infidelity, it's usually because we don't feel we deserve the truth of a love, a real love. Or it can mean that we are actually not invested in that relationship and that we would be happier elsewhere, but we don't have the strength or the self-belief to have that kind of conversation, to vocalize where we're going. And I think that's almost an epidemic in itself, that we are continuously cutting things from our lives instead of taking those slow, incremental steps. Maybe not even slow, maybe it's fast. Why does it have to be fast? Why does it have to be slow? Whatever. Taking those steps into creating a freedom of depth in that relationship. Instead of needing the freedom with other beings, having a freedom of depth with that person, the intimacy that comes with that experience. This isn't necessarily new information. There are many people who will be able to give much more detailed and delicious examples of what I mean here. So if anyone has any questions or wants to go down that rabbit hole, I highly suggest it. I think it's incredibly worthwhile. But for the sake of continuity here with me, I'm just going to delve into my experience because that's the only place I can speak from. And it's the only place I feel called to share at the moment. When we are really honest with ourselves, we realize all the places that we are maybe avoiding having a conversation or confronting a truth within ourselves of, actually, I am going to project my pain onto this person because I don't have the confidence to really integrate it in myself that I am feeling insecure, or I am feeling in pain, I am feeling overwhelmed, incomplete. And in the spiritual community, we have this fixation on being everything for ourselves. Find it within first. And whilst that is very important, energetically speaking, in terms of living a physical life and having physical relationships, unless you want to go do what I did and cut everyone out for at least half a year and live in the Vietnamese countryside, then I guess what we have to learn to do is first go within to balance. Breathe. Somatic breathing is the best to get underneath that trigger. Yoga, meditation, whatever works, but I really do find the breathwork practice is the most sensational. Go to Wim Hof right now. He's great. Go for that. And I'm not telling you what to do, just a suggestion, asterisk. And once we take that moment to recalibrate, we move into the action with a really peaceful confidence. We might still be nervous. We are human. We don't eradicate emotion through inward practice. We build compounding confidence over time after completing things that mean a lot to us, that pushed us, as Shoshana again would say, as compounding over time. It's the brave steps that lead to the confidence. Taking brave step, brave step, brave step, making you more confident, more confident, more confident. And I certainly find that is what resonates for me and my clients, people that I know in my life. I tend to be a force of coaching in all aspects of life, not because I'm better than anyone, but because I have a certain level of awareness that comes from sitting with oneself for 6 months alone, and also after that for about 2 years alone in a different context back in the UK. But I've spent a lot of time with myself, listening to myself and really analysing what works for me, what doesn't, so that I can show up in these spaces, hold that energy with other people and guide other people through that process. It's not something I take lightly. It's something I get to do. The pleasure, the privilege is mine. So just gently rounding up from this beautiful connection point, but I'm really grateful for your attention, your presence, the gift of you. And I'd love to remind you that that is the greatest gift we can give anyone. Just our time, our presence, our love, our compassion. And to give that to oneself can look like anything. It can feel delicious and more delicious, or it can feel really uncomfortable and like, I don't know how to love myself, I don't know where to go. Okay, take a step, a small step. Do you know someone that loves you very much? Can you go have a conversation with them? I love you very much. Whoever you are, I love you. Come and have a conversation with me. Come and work with me. I've got a really exciting 12-week offer for compounding confidence. So what we're going to be doing is essentially taking the mental, the emotional, the physical and the spiritual aspects of ourselves across a 4-week period, and the final 4-week period. The first 2 will be guided with me. The last will be integrating alone, but with my background supervision, of steps where we can step into a space of genuine authenticity in each area of our lives. So someone might be very gifted with music, but they are struggling to really connect to the side of themselves that is a business owner or is selling, for example. That can be quite challenging. I'm learning to love it a lot, but it's finding the spaces and places where you feel confident to do that. And sometimes these brave steps just come ever so softly, ever so softly, ever so softly. And I wouldn't be in a position to do this if I didn't have someone else guiding me through this process. Shoshana, Living Brave. Highly recommend her. If she resonates with you, if you resonate with her, check out her Instagram. And I mean that because people like her change lives with just the content they post on Instagram. And that genuinely is the frequency that I want to gift. With my uniqueness, my experiences, the softness, the love that I wish to give to every person. I pray that you receive that in this transmission. And I know that regardless of outcome, if you choose to act on my invitation to come work with me, or you find another space that resonates with you, I'll be opening up lots of different places that you can work with me. So if the 12-week course doesn't align, just send me a message and we'll find something that fits better. Anyway, it's a pleasure, a privilege, an honour. I thank you from the heart of my bottom, the bottom of my heart. Have the most beautiful day. All unfolds in the perfect way. And so it is.